loyalty described as, do you care? And I care, and that's why I'm on this show. Comes a time, here we go.
I'm a sucker for Oteil, man. I saw that same feeling that I have, that would he filled a void that I didn't even know existed.
It feels so good to, as Ben said, to try to do something about an issue as opposed to complaining.
If you can't help, don't hurt.
If we could just all get out there and throw cream puffs at each other, maybe things, instead of bullets and angry words, it would be better.
When you stop laughing, you stop living.
There's a worldwide surge in interest in mushrooms.
It was deep, man.
It's not that TM makes your mind quiet down there. It already is. We're just stuck up here. We've lost access.
And Jumpin' Jack Flash came out by the Stones. So I thought, all right, perfect, man. I'm gonna drive. And I started driving through the neighborhood, and I got a text from Mick Jagger.
People saying that, what we do is non-essential. Well, playing those few gigs that you saw me at felt pretty essential to me.
It wasn't like they were clapping from here. It was they were clapping from here.
My view of things is that death is the last and best reward for a life well lived.
Like it's the strangest of places if you look at it right,
If you're liking what you're hearing, head on over to patreon.com/comesatimepod and get your bus pass for an extra episode every week.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Comes a Time. That's Oteil.
And that's Mike.
And who do we have today? Our buddy came back.
Yes, Andy Bernstein from Headcount.
They had a monumental year this year. Over 500,000 voters signed up already, and it's October. It's late September. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, their partnerships are growing. Their scope is growing. It's awesome. It's just great. And I thought, at this point where we're at, we got to have them back. That's a regular like backline. And like others, we just need to keep touching base with Headcount.
That's right. Keep checking in.
This is an important one. So, but it turned out to be a really great, just across the board. What a fun episode.
I know. He started interviewing me about Dead and Company. I was like,
I loved it. My job was easy today.
Yeah, because his thing is when Dead and Company started getting big and going to stadiums, that's when Headcount really, he said, we were kind of struggling to get by, and then Fare Thee Well was a big push, and then Dead and Company helped just get it over the wall. So it's cool. It's a nice chapter in each other's lives.
It sure is, and Andy's the best. Absolutely not. And go register to vote if you're not registered. Go to Headcount. Help Headcount, support them. They're phenomenal. And it's just, a purely grassroots thing that turned out to be a game changer. So really, really honored to have them on. And thank you, Andy, for spending time and for everything that you do for us. And thank you for listening. We're on Osiris, home to so many great podcasts. Go to osirispod.com. And if you're enjoying us, you could head over to patreon.com/comesatimepod for a bonus episode every week. Until next week, enjoy it. Stay safe. Go vote. We're back. It's good to see you, Andy. Thank you for coming back.
Good to see you guys.
We have to congratulate you on a milestone, 100,000 registered voters this year.
Yeah. And it's midterm elections. It's not a small number. The most we'd ever done was 80,000. And that was in the year of the Parkland students and big voter turnout in 2018. So this year it was a really different environment, and we were still able to increase it. We got a few weeks to go. I think we'll hit 125,000.
Wow.
So, and then we're trying to directly interact with 1 million people, doing something to get them out to the polls, whether it's checking their registration status or having them visit our website to get voter information. And we're tracking toward that. So it's these are real numbers. You can stop the average person on the street, and there's a decent chance, if they're in a certain age demographic and like a certain kind of music, that they've interacted with Headcount and we've helped them vote.
Yeah. Since the last time that we've gotten together, I feel like the breadth of genre that you guys are, I mean, it's now just completely agnostic to any genre of music. Headcount is there.
It's so true. And I mean, the big recent stuff, Lizzo's been a great partner. And we'd wanted to work with Lizzo so badly for so long. That was just huge. Harry Styles, we've worked with before, but it's like really stepped up. We're out with Jack Harlow. I got to admit, I know a little bit of Lizzo music. I don't know Harry Styles. They played it for me in the office. They tell me I love it. I did see the Jonas Brothers this weekend at Global Citizen Festival, and I liked the Jonas Brothers. I didn't know I liked the Jonas Brothers. It was fun. It was like I couldn't stop dancing. Sometimes I surprise myself, but generally, you know the music. I listen to the same music that you guys do, or that you make. And for me, it's really eye-opening to work with all these artists. I'm not, I'm a classic rock jam band guy, and but I know where the young people are, and they're listening to, a lot of music that I'm not listening to. So that's where Headcount has gone, and it's been a really almost complete transition. Like, we're still with Dead and Company and Weir and Goose and a few others, but mostly, if you look at our event schedule now, it's more mainstream. And that's what people are signing up to volunteer to do. That's what our team leaders want to do. So I'm just like trying to not get in the way.
Yeah, get the numbers up, man. Like, if you need, the markets are there, you got to get them. It's funny though. I really feel my age because I've only heard of two of the people you mentioned, Lizzo and the Jonas Brothers. Like the other two, I got nothing.
Harry Styles.
What did he just do? 15 nights at the Garden, right? I think he sold. I know.
15.
Yeah. I mean, unless I'm driving by the Garden every day going,
I know.
I don't listen to the radio. Is there even radio anymore? Does radio exist?
I think I listen to Channel 23 on Sirius.
Yeah,
so the Grateful Dead channel, does that count as radio?
I think that does.
I don't think it does because like radio, would Styles show up on there? Or who's the other person?
Sirius XM. Well, not on the Grateful Dead channel, but definitely
on the. That's what I'm saying. Like if I listen, when you listen to the radio, you don't have a choice. Like it just comes at you. And if I was on Sirius, I still would never hear any of these people because I'd be on the 70s funk channel,
right?
And the avant-garde jazz channel and the whatever.
Totally. And it's like, and I'm sure you've had the experience where you see like the charts from like 1983 or something, and you know every song,
right?
Like, we used to all know
73.
Yeah,
63.
Like, and then the more recent it gets, the more factional it is. And so for me personally, it's been like, I joke around, but I'm not joking. I say I'm thoroughly unqualified to run a pop music organization. When Headcount started with Mark Bernstein and I, we were working in a space that we knew really well, not just that we knew the music, but we understood the grassroots marketing element.
Right.
From how the Biscuits got started to the Fish book, the Farmer's Almanac that I'd written. We sold our shit in parking lots. We sold our shit by talking to people directly. We sold our shit by standing in front of wetlands and handing out flyers. And we built an organization off of those methods, and still very much, I mean, Dead and Company, as you know, is still like really, really core to how we work and how we built the organization. Yeah. By the way, I just think we should talk about Dead and Company today. That's
okay.
But and now we're in these much larger spaces. But in the end, we have a few new digital things that work with all kinds of artists. And people aren't that different. If it works in the Dead community, it'll probably work in the Lizzo community. Like there are some things that are not that different. But yeah, like, I mean, seeing the announcement about it being the last tour, really like, it's certainly a moment for us because I think the Dead and Company, the period of Dead and Company has been the period of extreme growth for Headcount. So we turned 18 this year.
Wow.
When
that's awesome. The
year was like 2014, we were barely hanging on. We had a very, very modest budget. We had a few employees. We worked like on top of each other in the Relics office. And really starting with Fare Thee Well right into Dead and Company was how we just sort of changed. We were able to find new funding from the people who are coming out to these shows, some of the big high rollers bidding on guitars, and just had a moment at Fairly Well, as all of us did, and it rolled right into Dead and Company. And so, like, when I heard the announcement, it was like, wow, this is, for us, we've had a journey with Dead and Company that was unique, that was really transformative, and helped us get to Ariana Grande and Billie Eilish and all of them. So I'm like, how you feeling, Oteil?
I'm fine. I guess I'm like, since I had kids, I just don't worry about shit anymore. Yeah. And also when the Allman Brothers ended, I had nothing. And Jess was 6 months pregnant, I think. And so exactly a year later, I hustled and hustled and hustled for a year. And I found out, okay, I can keep the ship afloat just hustling.
Right.
And then exactly a year later, I got the Dead and Company gig. And I was like, man, I wish I had saved myself all that anxiety. Because you don't get the time back. So all that time I spent worrying, I'll never get it back. And I'm like, I refuse to do that ever again. It wasn't even a refusal. I'm just like, I can't do that again. So now I'm like, I'm great, man. I'm having so much fun with the kids. And I just got off tour with Melvin and the Kimmocks and Krez. And there's so much, like, you really think Bill and Bob and Mickey are going to go home and sit in the rocking chairs now?
It's going to continue.
They're going to have to be dead, or some doctors are going to have to forbid them to go on the road before they'll stop. So I'm just like, why? I'm fine. I'm not worried about it. Whatever. I never know anyway, like through all the Allman Brothers and Dead and Company, like one person dies, like it just could be over. So we don't know. I could get hit by a car. I don't know when my last gig is. So I think it's the last time we're going to play with those guys. I don't think so.
And it's like, we look at where you are today compared to them when you were hustling and worrying. And it is a good life lesson. Like, you think back to every worry you've had in your life, probably none of them was worth it. We all probably didn't worry about the things we needed to worry about. And we've lost years. I'm a very stressed out guy, not going to lie. And I'm just like, it's never worth it in the end.
No. And if you're lucky enough to get older, you can look back and see the stats, and you're like, wow, there's a lot of shit that I didn't have to worry about. So when it starts to happen again, I'm like, go play with Nige. Kavi wants to play with dolls. Let's do it. You want to put makeup on daddy? Let's go. Be in the moment, because if it does go bad, you have all those good moments. Yeah. So like with Head Count, it's like, okay, Dead and Company's over. You guys are going to be fine. Like you're out there already,
And it was like, because when you build things through like something like Dead and Company, they don't go away. Right. Your career is obviously in a completely different place on your own. Head Count, we learned so much through Dead and Company. Like, for folks who don't know, well, kind of our journey was starting with Lock-In Festival in 2013. We did something called Participation Row. Like, Shapiro and John Dindis came to us and were like, hey, we want this festival to be really like socially conscious. Can Head Count help? It's like, yeah. And I've always kind of wanted to do something. I've always wanted to do sort of like a social action village. Yeah. So like, knock yourself out, whatever you need. So we started doing that in 2013. We was like, hey, let's do an auction. Like, at first we didn't even think about that. And we got some guitars and posters signed by everybody playing the festival. And I think the guitar, it went for $20,000. And we were like blown into next week. We like could not believe that happened. I remember
like, how many guitars can we get?
Exactly. And the guy's name was Billy Smith. He bought it for a friend, and it was like this life-changing moment. It was like, oh my God. So we do it again, and then Fairly Well comes around, and Shapiro is like, you guys want in on this. Like, this could be big. I'm telling you, this is going to be big. So we do the participation row at Fairly Well, and we ask the band members, like, who do you want to invite? Who's dead family? And some of it was old school, like Seva and Rainforest Action Network, Rex Foundation, old school dead charities. But the band guys were great about getting back to us. Like Billy wanted Normal there. And I think Billy wanted Surf Rider. So we had this whole group of organizations. And then we had a couple guitars. Bobby sees the guitar the night before when he's signing, and he grabs the guitar and starts playing it. He's like, I really like the feel on this guitar. It was a D'Angelico guitar. He had never, I don't think he'd ever picked up a D'Angelico guitar. So then he turns to Matt Bush and says, I want to play that guitar on stage. So he ends up playing the guitar on stage the second night.
Perfect.
And we were like, this guitar, we think we might be able to get $100,000 for this guitar. We were going nuts. We were like recreating the rules to deal with a bigger transaction. Well, the guitar ends up going for $500,000.
Jesus.
And we split it among all 17 organizations that are there. Everybody gets, I think, $37,000. They're like the Owsley Foundation. They got their whole start with that. That was their startup money.
Their seed money. Wow.
Yeah. So that happens in July. And then Dead & Co. starts, I think, around Halloween. And we're like, all right, let's see if we can make this work again. And we did like a guitar. And sure enough, it goes for Bobby plays again. It goes for over $20,000. Not $500,000, but over $20,000. And then that summer with the arenas and stadiums and the outdoor shows, the amphitheaters, we really built it up. We partnered with Reverb, and we go with a serious operation on the road. And I should have pulled the numbers, but I think at this point we've raised for all the different charities, I think well in excess of $3 million through Dead & Company.
Wow.
All right.
Just through Dead & Company.
Just through Dead & Company. And we have we've developed it in a much more, I don't want to say sophisticated because it's more of a personal thing. We know the people who support. A lot of people now have multiple guitars, and they're wealthy people who are very generous, very big deadheads. And this is is how they express their philanthropy, is by doing our guitar auctions. And they know they're supporting Headcount and our work registering voters, and also supporting a lot of other dead charities. And we have our regulars, and there are people who, for some they're very wealthy, some they're just more well off, and this is their pride and joy is putting these guitars on the wall, and this is what they really put their hard-earned money into. And then you have a few where they have very, very large amounts of money. But most of the folks who have been supporting us, I'd say, are probably small business owners that are successful. They're not people you read about in the papers. They're look just like any other deadhead. And so, literally millions of dollars to charities, a very healthy amount to Headcount, and we've grown a lot. When that all started, we had, I think, 4 or 5 employees. Now we have 30. And it's not just from Dead & Co. and those auctions, but, when one thing goes well, other things start to go well. So I really credit Dead & Company with Headcount's ability. We've registered over 1 million voters. When that started, we were at a much lower number. We're able to go into a year like this and register over 100,000 voters during the midterm elections, when most people registered 2 years ago. You don't have a lot of people out there who haven't registered unless they just turned 18, but we're still going to register 100,000 voters. And to me, no matter who we're working with, you can't separate Dead & Co. from the success. It is the foundation pillar of how we did this. So I wanted to say that and then I just wanted to know, OTL, what your favorite Dead & Co. memories are.
Wow, there's so many, man. It would be hard. I mean,
well, there's more to make still too.
Yeah, and I think that's a part that maybe is we should do at least part of a podcast on just that, because I'm sure I could say some off the top of my head, and then after this podcast is over, I'll be like, dude, you didn't talk about I'm not good at on the spot.
You don't got to rank them, but what are the ones that come to your mind? Just
opening night is always one. I remember my first night with the Allman Brothers at Great Woods, June think it was June 6th, 1997. It was June. And so, the first couple of nights, we played Albany the first night. And so, there's a lot of, there was a lot of talk. Like, people were ready to hate it, It was like, so that was a relief that went well. And I believe the very next night was Madison Square Garden, which wasn't my first time playing there, but it was my first time like being the only act. Like, that was very memorable. Seeing your name up at Madison Square Garden. A lot of it was in the first rehearsals because it was everybody getting to know each other, and you have a jam, and you're like, well, that felt like it went really well, And there was some certain people like Rose Solomon, who's been around for a long time, was in the room when Rhea was delivered, and we have the same birthday, and she came up to me like, that is good. That's the real thing. And I was like, okay, she's been around since forever. Like, so it wasn't just me, actually a lot of memories in TRI. And then, it's been 7 years. We had some pretty, and then the whole last tour was probably like half of them, because it just, I don't know what, for me, my back was better from doing the yoga, and my bass weighed half my other one. So it was like being let out of prison. So the whole thing, I was like, oh yes, woo. So it's all in the category of be glad that it happened and not sad that it's over, Nice. And I'm sure, like with Headcount, like we did that together, and that's cool. We got this whole story together, and American history, really, it's cool.
I remember those first couple shows really well. And there was a moment where Mayer at the Garden, I think he maybe like forgot a lyric or something. And there was this like pause, and then the whole crowd just went crazy, giving him love. And that was the moment of acceptance. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that specific moment, but I remember feeling accepted. I remember going, they definitely like this.
Yeah.
And there was enough people in the room to like it. For all the haters that didn't like it, everybody was like, whatever, more room for us. Keep hating it. I got 4 friends I need to bring, So.
It was unmistakable on that first run of shows that everybody went in not knowing what to expect. And by, I think there were 3 Garden shows. I don't remember when it was, but it was there was this palpable feeling of, yes, we love it. Thank you, from the crowd.
Yeah.
And that was just that feeling of communalness that we know, defines this music.
Yeah.
But when everybody sort of comes to a conclusion together, and it was just very clear what was happening, that there was that moment of affirmation from the fans to you all on stage. And then also like the Let O'Teal Sing, that was right then and there. Those t-shirts showed up. I think you and I were backstage together when, what's the name of the gentleman who does those shirts?
Chris DiNardo.
Yeah, Chris DiNardo. He shows up with the shirts, or he maybe gave them to me to give to you, or something like that. That was early. That was.
And it's funny because my manager, who was not my manager at the time, Ben, is the one that made the Let Trey Sing shirts. So he was like, when we've got married, it was like, he goes, I'm the one that started the Let Trey Sing shirt. I was like, whoa, man, I got to tell Chris DiNardo that.
Full circle.
Yeah,
Wow.
It was cool. I remember the first night that I sang, I have these inner ear monitors that block everything out, and I couldn't hear the audience. And so I'm going to my wife, did they like it? She was like, you couldn't hear the reaction when you started? I was like, no, I can't. So I had the sound man put the crowd mics in my ears a little bit, So
Nice.
The next time I sang, I hit one note and it was just like, ah! I was like, whoa, it threw me off actually. I was like, okay, block it out. And that was a really crazy moment. And then feeling that later, like in a stadium, was crazy. It still is, actually. Every time. It still surprises me.
Was it China Doll? Was that the first song you sang?
I think that was the first one.
I think it was.
Yeah.
So there's so many. I mean, the Gorge, Austin, Second Night of Fenway. I think we all know what we're talking about. Just to check those off. Just like
Boulder.
Yeah. Oh man, such good stuff. I saw the rainbow at the first night of Santa Clara. That was the first night that I met Mayor. And the band flew me and Jess out. And then so to be on stage and like you're playing and then all of a sudden the crowd's going nuts and you have no idea why because you can't see it. And there's a rainbow over the whole stadium or whatever venue, right? And that's happened at least 3 times, I think. While I've been in the band, and that's weird. It's like,
just whenever Shapiro's in town. Now, what's musically, how would you compare playing with Bobby and John to Warren and Derek?
Well, it's like, how do you compare curry chicken from India or curry chicken from Thailand? They're all just different flavors. It's so subjective of a thing, and it's all wrapped up in all the other musicians too and the crowd. Like it's all, I can't really pick it apart like that, but I'm a buffet guy. I like the difference, I'm a gumbo guy too. Let's get them all together and stir it up at the same time, So, but I love it. They're such different bands, Allman Brothers and Dead and Company. I really feel like they're 2 sides of the same coin.
Right.
Like there's this era and a musical. They have the same roots. You know what I mean? But one's from San Francisco. And one's from Macon, Georgia, It's like I feel that way about New Orleans. Like there's my theory that Terrapin is Palo Alto, but then I feel like Black Terrapin is New Orleans. We just had Bill Summers on, a percussionist with Herbie that played with all these guys. He's from New Orleans, and I was like, oh, I see it. This is a node where everything just. It's a magnet for everything, and Palo Alto was that same way,
Right.
And they're connected across the country by these bands, by the Allman Brothers and by Dead and Company, and I got to play with both. I mean, it's crazy. Like you say, your favorite times, man. The whole trip from 1997 till right now has been like, and I can go back before that with Colonel Bruce. The whole thing is just one long, it's downs and ups, but it's all an incredible peak, all of it. What a blessing,
I'm going to venture to guess the reason that you've had these blessings. Obviously, it's your incredible bass playing ability, but I think your ability to play with these different personalities also has a lot to do with you as the person, and just as being a person who's easy to get along with and fun to be around. I'm sure.
I'm glad I was a happy drunk when I was drinking. I mean, it's all the grace of God, or the gods old and new, it's because say I wasn't a happy drunk, a whole different story, like I wonder, I'm blessed, man. And so the fact that I made it this far, I try to, you could see it more in perspective and be like, wow, this is such a great gift, all of it, and I didn't feel that way. I didn't know what I had when I was young, when I got the gig with the Colonel or got the gig with the Allman Brothers, or you know, I got the gig with the Dead when with Dead coming, I was 50. So I was more able to like go, hey, this is big, bro. Like take it in while it's happening. You know, before I was just like, you know, and now I'm like really taking it in. And, you know, and Headcount's a part of that. I mean, like these bands really changed the culture so much. And I feel like I'm getting to take my little part, lend a hand in that, and doing that with you in such a crucial time with a climate crisis, crazy politics, crazy economics.
Yeah.
You know, it's really important that this happened right now. And by that same grace, it got to happen. And we pulled off that last 7 years, you know, like that one, you know, those points are on the board forever, you know.
And you came off this last tour, this last O'Teal and Friends tour, like there was big crowds, and they were
surprised me for my little old me. I'm always Sally, feel like they like me, you know. But yeah, I mean, it's like we're doing something big. I get recognized all the time. I can't go out now without getting recognized. It's weird. And you know, some lady, she was like, "Are you famous?" I was like, "No, if I was famous, you'd know who I am." She was like, "Okay, you know." And then we were in this little diner, and it was just me and her and this one other guy at the end of the counter. And I'm just like talking with her, and she was like, "Well, you're really nice, but I think you're famous." You know, I told her I was in a band. She said, "What's the name of the band?" I said, "O'Teal and Friends." You haven't heard it because I'm not famous. And then this one guy at this little diner downtown in like Milwaukee or something, he goes, "Are you O'Teal?" She goes, "I knew you were famous."
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like that's changed. You know, like I got recognized when I was with the Allman Brothers, but now it's on a whole nother level, you know? And so with that comes an opportunity to make positive change. And you know, it was easy, you know.
Well, from my experience, what hasn't changed is you, my friend. You are the same person. And obviously everybody changes, and that's a platitude, but
for the better, hopefully.
Yeah. But one thing I mean, I appreciate it. I think everybody who knows you appreciates is you're like the same friendly person. You're the same person who like always takes the time to like have a meal at catering or just hang or treat me really well in Philadelphia. I appreciate it very much. Like I mean, and you know how it is. And like you spend 7 years in a huge band, you're going to change. And I'm sure you have in ways, but you didn't lose that quality of just being the person you are and the easy person to be friends with and the easy person to talk to. And that's, you know, that's like a really commendable thing. And I'm sure I speak for many people in your extended orbit of how much we appreciate it. Like, it just makes the shows more fun.
You're the same way too, man. I tell you, I could tell you exactly what did it for me was because I haven't always been that way. I remember Chicago for some reason. I was trying to get back to the hotel, which was close. I guess I shouldn't have walked it. Asking for, or no, because it was early. I came in early, and there were fans waiting, and I had to do something. And I was like, "I'm really sorry, I just can't right now. Like, if I stop for you, then I got to do them. And I just, sorry." And I just kept moving. And after that, I remember hanging out with Willie Nelson and with B.B. King. And they're so iconic. But their humility is exactly as big as how iconic they are, which is really saying something. And they would always have time for a picture, a word. I mean, both of them, Willie's wife and BB's manager, be like, "We have to be on stage like now, BB." Like he's been telling BB for 20 minutes. And BB's like, "These are my children," you know, and he's just talking away, you know. And they're like, "Dude, that's it. Party's over." He just always has time, always take the picture. And I was like, wow, I'm just an asshole, you know. So I vowed, I was like, I'm always going to stop. I'm always going to take the picture. I'm always going to have time for a word, and I'm not going to look like it's frustrating me. I'm going to look like it's fine, unless I really can't. So, and then I'm just like,
Yeah.
But yeah, meeting those guys did it, and I was like, you can be nice. And my two biggest heroes, Wayne Shorter and Elvin Jones, just angel raised nice.
What's up, everybody? This is Mike, and today's show is sponsored by Sunset Lake CBD, a Vermont hemp farm crafting affordable CBD products designed to help with stress and sleep without breaking the bank.
Sunset Lake CBD is a majority employee-owned hemp farm located just outside of one of our favorite places, Burlington, Vermont. For years, Sunset Lake was a dairy farm producing milk for Ben & Jerry's ice cream. We had them on the podcast. In 2019, they diversified and started growing hemp for CBD.
And Sunset Lake CBD crafts products with hemp grown on their family farm and ships them directly to the customer, cutting out all the cost associated with getting on the shelves at stores. They have CBD products for every occasion and offer tinctures, salves, edibles, coffee, smokables, and even for that anxious dog of yours, they have pet products.
Ooh, I need to get some for my dog that's barking all the time. But I'll tell you this, I use these. The Sour Bears.
So good.
They are CBD gummies. I literally, no joke, I take these every night. They help me sleep. And it's almost bedtime.
Yep. And I still, as said it before, I'll say it again. You go to a long show, you come home, my 42-year-old ankles are not what they used to be. And I rub that salve all over them and put them up, enjoy a nice cocktail, and just let it ooze right into those sore bones. And you know what, folks? All you Comes a Time fans, if you check them out at sunsetlakecbd.com and use promo code TIME, T-I-M-E, you'll get 20% off all products. That's sunsetlakecbd.com. Use promo code TIME, 20% off all products. Sunset Lake CBD, farmer-owned, Vermont-grown. Thank you.
Get you some.
It's probably no coincidence that BB played basically right up to the end, and I think he played like 250 shows a year. And Willie's still going at 89.
And that's how Bob, Bill, and Mickey are going to be if the gods old and new allow it. If they allow it, they'll go right up until they'll go just like the Colonel. I guarantee it. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I don't see Bobby. Like he said it. He goes, "We're going to be doing this till we're dead." He said it. Yeah.
I'm not like that, but I have a great respect for that because, they can't help it. I think it's more than who they are. I think it's like what they are. Like Kavi, my daughter, she will be the head of something, probably the whole country. Definitely a corporation or something. She's going to be running shit. It's what she is.
Yeah.
She's in charge, and Bob, Bill, and Phil, and Mickey, and Jerry, they're going to be on the road until the doctor says no or the heart says no. And the body says no, so you got to marvel at that because that ain't me, dude. I'm going to be like chilling.
You've already moved to Florida.
I already moved here with the Golden Girls, with my heroes. I got a little Chia Pet Sophia on my counter now that Kavi wants to do. I'm here, dude.
Think about those guys. I mean, Bobby how old was he when they started? Was he 15?
16, right?
I think he said during the other one, he said, I've probably been on stage more hours than anybody else. It's probably true.
Bill was 17.
Yeah.
I just did a record with Paul Riddle, the original drummer for Marshall Tucker Band. He was 16, 17. They pulled him out of high school. J-Mo promised his dad he wouldn't let him get into all the crazy stuff, and he kept that promise.
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys start so young. So they, when you've been on the road since you were 16 and then you got famous around 18, like,
and it's 1968.
You can't even just imagine, like, to just be a fly on the wall with one of these guys, especially if they ended up nice and with their mind intact, which doesn't always happen. Yeah.
One of my favorite Dead & Co. memories was getting to watch a show with Mountain Girl.
Oh, I love her, man.
She came to Camden, and she said I think it was her second Dead & Company show, and the first one she said she didn't really have an opportunity to truly watch it. So it was basically her first show. And I'd never met her before. And first off, you immediately get the sense of her just incredible aura and energy, and her
she's a force.
A force, exactly. And and she's an historic person, and it was like just really an honor to watch the show with her. And she loved it. Like, she absolutely loved it. She was like really like reacting to the show. She was like, wow, she was saying, like, throughout the show. Huge smile. And I'm there, Shapiro's there with me. We're in the soundboard area. And I said to Pete after it, I was like, we're so blessed because we have a front row seat for the happy ending of this story.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Like, there's been so much turmoil and so much to get to this point, but Dead & Company is if they make the movie, I guess they are and will, of the Grateful Dead, Dead & Company will just probably be the like credits rolling and everyone smiling because it really was the joyous end without, I'm sure, behind the scenes, I'm sure you guys had all kinds of whatever.
Oh yeah, we had our moments, but that's the cool part about it, because I remember like when I had mine and I was just so frustrated, and then it came up roses. I have the picture of it, when it all worked out. And then I put my head down on the pillow that night and I was like, now you're in the dead. You gotta have your scar. Yeah, I got that one in 2019, and you know what I mean?
It's like, and I know that you guys do have that, and every once in a while you hear a little bit, not much. It's not, head count isn't caught up in that part of your world, but the perspective on it is all, it's like, no one's going to jail.
Exactly.
No one's broke.
No one slept with the other one's wife.
Yeah.
Like, it's all it's all just
You can get perspective real fast, and then from the outside, it is this just joyous gift to have really an era of arena level shows. One thing I love, when I saw the Grateful Dead, 23 times in my early 20s.
Wow, nice.
I just got the tail end, 91 to 95. I loved the stadium shows.
Yeah, me too.
Much more than the arena shows.
Me too. Or the amphitheater shows.
Yeah, amphitheaters is like
except for Alpine. I don't know why, but Alpine.
It's the energy. It's the it's the mass amounts of people. I remember going up to Rich Stadium in Buffalo in 1992, and I watched the first set from the floor, and then I watched the second set from all the way up in the top tier, and so you could see everybody. And I remember seeing Bobby step to the mic for Estimated Profit and just move toward the mic, and just the explosion of energy when the vocal. I'll never forget that. I was 20 years old, and
nice.
Like, then for a long time we didn't really have that. Even like further, the other ones, all of it. Well, there's some arenas, there was baseball, like minor league baseball stadiums, but to be able to come back and have this era of just massiveness. And like for head count, that was what we kind of needed. We needed something big to like build our organization around.
Yeah.
And to get this many years and have another one, like, it's just like, it really has been a gift that keeps on giving. Like, I don't think anybody thought we'd get this many years out of it. Like,
man, you wanted to tell you a humility story. We were on stage at the stadium, and now we had just started playing stadiums again. I'm just like, okay, this is happening, you know? And, you know, we have these little pipe and drape things on stage for us to have a little privacy on, say, a little mini dressing room. And I would always be with Bill at that point. That was before we'd switched sides, I think. And, but we're sitting back there and we're, you know, I'm just hitting the pen and we're looking out at the audience and Bill's like, isn't this unbelievable, man? And I was like, yeah. He's like, I just can't get over it. Like, this is so cool. Like, and I was like, Bill, you've been playing stadiums since like the 70s. Like, this is not old hat to you? He's like, no, man, I never get over it. It's just like, I'm so grateful. Like, I was just like, wow, man, that is winning right there, man. That's winning. And I took that into my heart. I was like, this dude's been doing this in stadiums since I was born in 1964. So since I was 7 years old, 6, you know, like, you know, like, what? Okay, man.
Never got old.
Not one bit. I saw it in his eyes, man. That shit was real. That was no act. You know, that was beautiful.
And you could see watching how much fun they're having and how much fun he's having. And just,
looking out over the audience, he's
just
playing.
Sitting back there with a big grin.
Just taking it in. I'm like, that's how we're supposed to live. Like, you're going to get pissed off at something you probably shouldn't get pissed off. You know, just certain bad circumstances pile up and just put you in one last, right? But for the most part, if you could savor, you know, you watch that happen, you know, that was a gift from God's, man, to be able to see that happen with Bill, to be a part of that personal inner, you know, that was life-changing.
And it's incredible what it's going to do for all of the other incantations of dead music for decades to come, you know? Like, J-Rad's going to crush it forever, and what you do is going to be amazing, and Bobby and the Wolf Bros and Billy and everybody that goes and does their things.
Yeah. That I could see it after I'm dead. I could see it.
This music's not going anywhere. Yeah.
No, it's like jazz. You know, people are still playing, you know, these old jazz tunes, you know, that all these just generations of jazz players have kept alive.
Yeah.
That's a cool thing. And that was my, you know, I had a different path that I saw for myself, you know, which Colonel Bruce altered. But now that I see what this is, it's like, you're helping keep this important thing alive and moving forward past when you die. That's Absolutely. A big honor, you know, that's a big honor. So,
for 2 different big bands too, for 2.
And ones that needed to happen to bring more people to all this music that they were inspired by, that they probably wouldn't have checked out. They probably wouldn't have checked out the bluegrass and the country and the jazz and the avant-garde stuff and the New Orleans music and the you know, all these roots, the gospel stuff, all this, you know, stuff that are the arteries of rock and roll, you know?
Yeah.
And these fans do investigate it. They go, oh, you know, let me check out Robert Johnson. Oh, let me check out Ralph Stanley. Let me check out all these different things. You know, we had Bill Summers, a percussionist, on earlier today, who we know from playing with Herbie and the Headhunters. But he also played with Stevie Wonder. He played Quincy Jones, Alan Toussaint. Just like the list just goes on and on. He goes, yeah, that who's that guy? Lee's Grateful Dead. You play with that, right? I said, yeah, I played with some of those guys. He goes, what's that guy's Lee's? And I can't believe I remember, like Jerry Garcia. He goes, yeah, I played with him. He's like, you know a guy named Vince Welnick? We were really good friends. I was like, wow, you know, just like all that spread out. And he's given us this whole history lesson about African music and how all these rhythms that you hear and all this music that the Grateful Dead is playing, each go with some god or nature right or some element or something. Like all these rhythms, you're like, boom, 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 boom. I'm sure if I asked him about that, he'd be like, oh, yeah, that's whatever, blah, 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 you know? And it just, all that ties together. It's so cool to be part of this web and see the connections, you know, and then be the connections to keep it going forward. And hopefully Headcount will help that with this country, because we need the connections to be made, or else we're just, you know.
Well, and you know it's funny, Andy, about like asking you to come on. It's like hilarious to think moving forward, every election is going to be the most important election.
They all were and they all are.
Yeah, every single one is the newest one is the most important one.
It's, you know, we always feel that way, but it always proves to be true. And you look at, I was watching a thing last night about the leader of Brazil and the autocracy there.
Is it still Bolsonaro?
He said if he does not win the election, it was stolen, and that they'll have to kill him.
Jesus.
I mean, and this is, you know, happening in modern times in an enormous country in Brazil that was a democracy or is a democracy. And it's like just really, really freaking chilling. And then you poke the channels around and you're talking about nuclear. I mean, Putin's saying he's not bluffing and kind of believing him. You know, me, I'm like, he hasn't bluffed on anything else.
Right.
And that's scary, beyond scary. And it's like, what do you game it out in your head? It's like, what do we do if that happens? What do we as America do? What do we as a world do? And there's no good answer. Every answer.
There is no. The climate's given that to us regardless of any of this other shit.
Yeah. And so it's like we're going to be like, well, what's going to happen? Are we going to look back and be like, oh, remember when it was all beautiful stadium concerts and where the world really fell apart? Like, or
it'll be remember when we failed to pull together?
Yeah. Remember when we didn't stop it? And I mean, I don't know. I tend to be an optimistic person. I believe that the arc of history bends toward progress, and I believe that things get better and not worse over time. With a lot of, you know, it's a long, strange trip, but I think the world is a better place than when I grew up. And we forget that. You know, I grew up in New York City in the 70s and 80s, and New York City was dirty. It was dangerous.
Yeah.
I remember the gas lines of the gas crisis.
I remember all that shit. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember a lot of really race-based violence in Brooklyn and Queens in the late 80s.
Yep.
And certainly that has not gone away in any respect, but the things that were rising to the level, the surface in New York City in 1989 was really, really bad. And I like to think it is better now. We're not, the world has not improved as much as we wanted to, but it is better than it was in New York City 34 years ago. Boy, I feel old now. But so I'd like to think that we're going to we do this again. We're going to say, wow, there's always going to be challenges, but we're always going to be working through them and getting better. But there is a kind of moment where you can see like these are really huge steps backward. Like
and at a time where we don't have time for this incremental shit.
Right.
Like, right. I know, yes, the arc of the universe bends towards justice. That's a big arc, dude. The climate is going to hit us at about this point in this long arc. We can't wait till down there. We got to chop, and I don't see that happening. But, this love rises up to meet the moment I see it happening. I see that, like, mystically, I see it happening. Like with the growth of head count with, going into stadiums and stuff. That's my only worry, just the time.
Yeah.
Climate alone, the time is short, there's a reckoning coming.
Yeah.
And it's, you can see, I mean, when you think about elections and I tend to believe there's a lot of stuff we overhype and it's bad, but not the doomsday that everyone wants to see. And then you look around and be like, but I see there is doomsday. Like you can see that if you got to a point where people are overturning elections, that's doomsday. Like,
well, look at the 10 cities. Like I've been going to LA, San Francisco, like everywhere, Denver, wherever, St. Louis, just every city that I've been in, I walk around.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, this is not good. This is very dystopian. Very dystopian.
Yeah.
And it's changed rapidly. Now I know things can change rapidly in the other direction too. It's just like, will they? We're taking that shot right now, and I think we're taking it the right way. It's
just steps
scary.
backwards in so many different places. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think all that stuff was driven underground, really kind of by the media and by, partially the good side winning, but the real powerful economic forces, it wasn't the good side winning. So now you have all these people that were driven into the closet, and they're like, well, everybody's out of the closet. You can be gay, you can be trans, you can be this and that, and we're the only ones in the closet. And so they came back out. It wasn't like steps backwards. It was like a coming out party, which is this part of the country that everybody thought went away, but it wasn't ever gone, ever, In fact, it was growing and consolidating and networking, and then boom, it's just so ironic that Trump would have been the Frankenstein monster of all of it, like a northern billionaire, But whatever, it is what it is. Now we have to deal with this reality of this is what it's always been, and this is what it still is. Now what are we going to do? It's all out in the open now.
Yeah. The voter turnout, we're coming off two like record highs, 100-year highs.
Yeah.
And that is one of the silver linings of the polarization and of the, which I hate, and just of the Trump years, is that, however people felt, they felt strongly. And now high voter turnout is a relative thing. So the 2018 midterms, the young voter turnout was a little over 35%, which was amazing, astoundingly high, but also disturbingly low all at once. Yes. Most years it's around 20%. And so our big question, like going into November, is it's going to be somewhere in between. It's not going to hit the 2018 numbers.
Yeah.
And 2018, I credit a lot to the Parkland students also.
Yeah.
Who really just motivated other young people. And I know you know them well, Atil.
Yeah.
So it's like, where are we going to land here? Is this going to be a country that says, I'm not going to let elections, I'm not going to do the whole, I don't want to deal. Are we going to be a country where people take control of the future, whatever that entails? Or are we going to fall back on let somebody else figure it out?
Yeah.
And I really don't know. I mean, I really don't.
One hope I have, I think, is ranked choice voting, because it's starting to be put in some places. Like they voted in ranked choice voting in Alaska, and Palin just lost.
Yep.
To a Democrat.
Right.
Pretty incredible.
Because of ranked choice voting, they were like, okay, she's too nuts. And then there was another Republican, I think, and then this Democrat. And because of ranked choice, it was like, well, the Dem ended up winning. So that's one way that if that could take hold, we would have had Bernie.
They had ranked choice voting in Maine, and it definitely determined who won.
Absolutely.
And I love it. After the fact, someone tried to sue. It's like, no, this is how it works now. You
That's
don't get
hilarious.
sued because you lost.
Yeah.
And it gives, and ranked choice voting is a little bit hard to get people's heads around, but it works. And it's just, you basically pick your candidates in order. And if nobody gets 50%, you start lopping off the candidates with the lowest and then keep retabulating. And eventually someone gets 50%. And if your candidate gets lopped, so you can pick your crazy out there candidate isn't going to win. You can still put them number one and then put your more realistic candidate number two and still stand for what you believe in completely.
Yeah.
And but eventually the candidates, it comes down to like whoever gets more than 50%. And
that's more democratic, isn't it?
It's way more democratic. And if people can figure out fantasy football, they can definitely figure out voting.
Yeah, so, that's true.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What constitutes a young voter? What age?
18 to 29 is generally the demographic. It's how the census breaks it up. 18 to 24 is the youngest, and then it's 18 to 29, and that's how the data is usually parsed out.
Wow.
And
35%.
People under 30 vote a lot less than people over 60. But there are much more young voters than there are older voters now because just the demographic shifts in America. And young voters, the 18 to 24 cohort is 45% non-white. So you have a much more diverse, much more representative of the new America and really of what historically America has always welcomed new populations and new folks coming in. And those people vote and those people shape the country. And in modern times, it's from different parts of the world. It used to be from Europe, Northern Europe, Western Europe. Now it's all over the world.
Right.
Interestingly, just as an aside, I just saw a stat yesterday that the amount of migration has dropped dramatically in this country from over 1 million a year to a couple 100,000. And we have a labor shortage. And it's like, well, of course we have a labor shortage. And inflation is completely driven by the labor shortage because, there are not people they have to pay a lot more as they should for, base level manual labor. But when you can't even fill those positions, it affects the entire economy and the cost of everything. So it's like, I'm not an economist or a professor or whatever, but you'd think that there's some pretty basic math here is when you lose people coming into the country and you lose the labor force, you have inflation. And we don't like inflation. So maybe there's a solve here. Don't know. Not a, simple math. But these are the things that we can learn on a daily basis.
But there's other forces driving things, when the dominant forces are efficiency and profit, then with a healthy gun.
You experienced firsthand the ins and outs of immigration and how many hoops you had to jump through. I know.
Oh man, adopting Kavi, and it was something. And when you go to the
works for you, and you're obviously a connected person with resources, and people, and I know the same people who were very helpful. Imagine if you had none of that.
And ultimately, they couldn't help, which is the funny thing. There's one thing that really helped that I think I couldn't verify it, but there was one person at this immigration office in India that I think one of my sources, it's just a feeling I got because there was a lot of just, stop signs. Because India, they don't give a damn, they're like, whatever. And so it's a tough thing. And, when Kavi came home, the pandemic broke out 5 months later. And we had gone because it had already been taken 2.5 years. And we were like, this is never going to happen. Like, we just have to go over there and plead with the judge and just try to force it. And no, don't mention bribing because of child sex trafficking.
Oh, geez.
But you can't even think about trying to bribe someone because that's And wow, what a lesson, what an eye opener.
Can't believe it was. I forgot it was 5 months before the pandemic.
I'm pretty sure she would still be there.
Down to the wire.
Yeah. It was literally, like Star Wars when the door's shutting and slide under.
Squeaks right through.
It's something. So but all we do, what do? We gather up our gumption and we join together and we take our shot. That's all we can do. We're here right now. We're up at bat and we got to take our shot. And so I'm glad to be up at bat with you, Andy, and Head Count and everybody that's helping, and for us to that's all we could do is heave ho and get it over the top,
Yeah, we had to have you on at this point too, just because of where we're at and how close we are to it's just, you need to be a regular right around this time.
Well, I'm always happy to hang with you guys, and
how could you not be stressed with all the shit that and see going on, trying to stem the tide? Wow.
Yeah,
I couldn't do it.
Well, I'll finish it with this: that when the way Head Count started was I was doing something totally different. I was a reporter covering sports, and I'd written a book about fish. I'd written the Farmer's Almanac with some buddies, and that was my link to the music world. But it wasn't what I did for a living, and I didn't do anything with politics. I never had, other than just having opinions like everyone else. And I was doing an interview with somebody, and we started talking about Guantanamo Bay and how the United States was putting people in jail without charges. And I felt that was extremely un-American, and so did the other person I was talking to. So I hung up the phone, and I'm like, I gotta stop complaining. I gotta do something. What can I do?
Yeah.
And I sat there and I thought about it, and I was like, well, think about all the concerts I go to. Think about this community that I'm a part of, and we have power. We don't know we have power. We don't think about it, but this is the first Bonnaroo's had just happened, and it was 70,000 at the time, all jam band fans. We were a force in America, and we just weren't exercising that.
Weren't organized.
So I reached out to Bernstein, threw him an idea. He's like, I'm in. And then we reached out to Bobby via Al Schneer of Mo and got the board together. Shapiro, Rich Goodstone, Jonathan Schwartz, Steph Scamardo, Nadia Pressure, all jam band people at the beginning. And we were just like, we know that our community can make a difference. We just got to figure out how. We just got to organize it. And now, 18 years later, it's a lot of communities. It's a much broader definition of the music community. But the idea is still the same. The idea is that collectively we make a difference, and it's undeniable. And when Grateful Dead Nation or Ariana Nation or Harry Styles Nation gets motivated and shows up and make their voices heard, these are very big forces. These are large forces of humanity. And we share values, whether we share politics or not. Spoiler alert, we don't. There's diversity and opinions in every community.
Right.
But there are values that are fairly universal. When you show up at a concert and you all sing together, somewhere in there's this underlying feeling of we're stronger together, we respect each other. The golden rule, love thy neighbor. These things are baked into how we experience music.
Yes.
And when people who've bought into that all show up at the polls, there is an impact. And so that was the idea 18, 19 years ago. And it's still the idea today, no matter who we're working with. And that's why, in the end, the Grateful Dead and Dead and Company, it's just it's for us, the fact that this chapter ended up being the chapter that got Head Count to a whole nother place.
Yeah.
We couldn't have written it better. Couldn't have it just happened that way. And that's how it was supposed to happen.
That's why I don't give up, because there's still magic. It's very storybook. You know what I mean? So there's that. And there's the fact that, the 1% are getting over on the 99%. So the game is to keep the 99% fighting horizontally instead of fighting vertically. But once the 99% realizes we outnumber these guys so much, like we could just say no, literally just say no. No, I'm not going to that war. I'm not. If you have to give me a better reason than just, flag waving and whatever, like to go drop depleted uranium bombs on Iraq when they didn't have anything to do with 9/11. You know what I mean? Just sit on your hands and say no. We could change everything. If everybody stopped shopping at Walmart for a week, they would bend to our will because all they care about is this. But everybody has to be on board. So we just got to enlighten. We got to try to connect people together and inform people. And hopefully they will start to realize that and start, we don't have to aim guns at each other. We don't even need guns if we just say no,
And Andy, thank you for informing us about that stuff, because there's a lot of folks that, get their data and their info and their links from your guys' social media pages and from, the folks that you partner with. So you're doing a great job of getting the numbers out and the figures and the where it needs to be, like at everybody's fingertips.
Yeah. And with these young kids, because it's their world.
That's it.
It's coming down the pike,
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate the time. I would imagine that most people who've sat through this already know how to find Headcount, but if they don't, headcount.org or at headcount.org. We're always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for people to get involved. And the world needs more deadheads. The world needs more deadheads in positions of influence. So we bring deadheads together with a bunch of hairy heads.
Hairy heads.
Everybody gets along. So
it's just like wetlands. You're like the wetlands of
politics.
Exactly.
Thank
but
you,
I'm
Andy.
grateful to you guys. It's really fun to be on. Really fun to see you, OTL. I'll see you.
You too, man.
Well, I'll see you this summer for sure, but I'll see you before that. And yeah, guys, and congrats on the podcast, keeping this thing going and thriving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
100+ episodes, man. Thanks for continuing to come back. We got each other's backs.
Yeah, come back again soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye, buddy.
Bless you, man.
Take care.